Hello and welcome. It is so awesome to see you here. Today, I want to talk about beliefs and our belief systems that we have inside of a relationship. But first, I want to ask you, where do your beliefs actually come from? How do we develop beliefs and how do they affect our lives today if it's something that happened years ago? So, I want to share with you a story. Something that happened to me that made me really realize how my beliefs were impacting on my relationship. So about 15 years ago, I was sitting in a business meeting and there were about people sitting around the table. And one of the men at the table was getting quite a little bit heated with his conversation, and everybody else seemed to be fine at the table. Anyway, we went on and eventually he took his hand and he slammed it down on the table fairly hard. And when I looked around the room, nobody else had budged. They really hadn't even noticed that he had done it. But for me, my body instantly went into a flight reflex. I was scared and I had to leave the room. And by the time I made it to the bathroom, I was in tears. I was sobbing and I had no idea why. And I had no idea why nobody else at that table had been impacted. And it was maybe only a couple of years ago after that happened that I realized that it had triggered something inside of me. And what it had triggered for me was the fact that my dad was a very violent man. He was very abusive towards my mother. And I had grown up with that. I was the age of 14 when my parents separated. And it was really at that point in my life where I realized how important our beliefs are and our past experiences in determining the level of success that we have in our relationships into the future. And that was something that, I'm in my 40s now, I was in my 30s at the time. That was something that I had dragged around with me for such a long time, and I had no idea that it was something that impacted me. So when we understand what our beliefs are and how we feel and how we react in certain situations, we're much more likely to be able to have more control. So an example of that is nowadays, if I hear a loud noise or if I hear a man's booming voice, I know that if something comes up in me, it's based on my past and it is not about what is happening here and now in this very moment. But the problem is that most of us are not aware of what our triggers are. So for example, if you grew up in a home where your parents never apologized to each other, they just didn't do it, then there is a chance that you may find apologizing difficult. Or let's say you grew up in a home where your parents were not physically intimate with their partner in front of you. There could be a chance that as an adult you find physical intimacy inside of your relationship challenging. Or if your parents always dealt with conflict by yelling and screaming at each other, is that the same way that you deal with conflict? Now, I'm not saying that this is guaranteed, but what I am saying is check in on your behavior. Check in on the things that impact your relationship to see whether some of the beliefs that you have that were established when you were young are still now playing out in your relationship. Because if they are, the power you have is the ability to recognize it, see what your triggers are, and then start to change how you respond. So think about all the areas in your relationship where you have any conflict. It might be around intimacy, it might be around apologizing, it might be around job sharing, it could be anything. Now, the biggest challenge that we have with beliefs is that we're not just dealing with our own beliefs. In a partnership, we're also dealing with the beliefs of our partner. And hopefully you're watching this together. So understanding this is not about a witch hunt. This is not about going, oh, you must have a really bad belief system in this space because this is how you're behaving. A partnership means that we have the ability to support our partner and help them to see perhaps where what they're doing may be a pattern that they've been following for all of their lives. And sometimes when we've been the one who's been doing it all our lives, it's really, really hard to recognize where we do that because we don't see the problems for ourselves. Sometimes it takes somebody else pointing out the problem to us in a kind and caring and loving way so that we can actually start to work on that and become a better version of ourselves. one of the things that I'm really passionate about in relationships is that we get to talk to a person, our partner, and share with them things that the rest of the world probably would never tell them. And that's what the trust is all about. So this is not about finding and finger pointing. This is about going, wow, honey, did you realize that every time I talk about money, you react negatively? These are the little ways that we can start to help our partner see things without it being judgmental. So think about what those areas are in your relationship that cause conflict for you, or that cause heartache or pain. Go through the email that I've sent you as well, because there's some areas that you can fill out, some sentences that you can fill out to help you understand where your beliefs might be holding you back, and then start to work on shifting those. Part of shifting your belief system, a great way to do that is to use affirmations. So for example, for me, with my dad, his behavior, I now say to myself often, I am safe and I'm happy. I'm safe and I'm happy. And so even when a loud noise does happen or a man's booming voice screams out, I just keep going back to I'm safe and I'm happy, because I knew what it felt like to be a little child. I wasn't safe and I wasn't happy. I was petrified. So use affirmations to shift your energy. So affirmations need to be phrased in the positive sense. So it's not, instead of saying I'm not scared anymore, that's a negative. The positive of that is I'm safe. So spend some time together. Have an agreement between each other that this is what you do to help and support one another. You point out where there is a common behavior that's being demonstrated that is not in support of the loving, nurturing relationship that you want to build. Thank you so much. I will see you on our next call. I can't wait.